Only a couple months now. I think I recognize her.
Welcome to The Truth in This Art Beyond, and we're in Philadelphia. I'm your host, Rob Lee. And I'm here to share an interview with you today that I did with Stephen C.W. Taylor, the owner and curator for Ubuntu Fine Art Gallery. He's also a systems engineer, a photographer, and a time thief. That is a title that he loves and he uses. I dig it. And the gallery that he's representing, Ubuntu, showcases large format color photographs from Taylor's travels and is the first Black-owned single artist fine art photography gallery in the USA. The interview will take us on a journey through Taylor's art, his vision for the gallery, and the impact that he hopes to make through his work in the community. Get ready to feel inspired.
Thank you for having me.
So as you were saying with the Baltimore 2's language, I did an interview before I came up here, right? And I'd asked, it was Mariam from Philadelphia Printworks, and I was like, so how do you order your cheesesteak? And she was like, salt, pepper, ketchup. I was like, that's the Baltimore thing you just said. Salt, pepper, ketchup. That order is a string.
Where's the mayo? Salt, pepper, ketchup, mayonnaise, fried onions.
That's exactly what she said. But the salt, pepper, ketchup as a string, that is something that we say. It's like, yo, I need a chicken box, salt, pepper, ketchup.
Right.
Me, it's always hot sauce because I'm a spicy
Right.
individual. So, as we get started, as we go in, I just wanted to get that out of the way because it's always about food for me because I'm starving. So, can you tell us about your background and how it influenced the work that you're engaging in today? We're here, we're in your gallery, which is, thank you for the invitation. Thank you for having the space. And what sorts of interests did you have growing up? So in this sort of question, or have you talk about your background a bit, and how it kind of pops up and shows up in your work today, and what were some of your interests growing up?
So as a kid, and me and my mom talk about this often, for Christmas, so me and my brother's 3 years older than me, so we're 3 years apart, so we got a lot of combination Christmas gifts. So we got Genesis, that was ours, we got PlayStation, that was ours, Nintendo, that was ours, and then we could kind of each get an individual gift for Christmas or whatever the case may be. And at about like maybe 5, 6, 7, I could be older, I could, the actual age range is escaping me, I always wanted constructs or Legos. Nice. Or things to build with, right? Not really understanding, knowing that, damn, you're an engineer. I got this whole book of instructions finished by New Year's.
Yeah.
So I built everything in this connects, constructs, Lego, whatever it was, by the time New Year's got there, and the amount of time simply by, okay, what are the instructions telling me to do on how to build this thing? And then, my uncle, when he was alive at the time, he would go to the VA hospital and always bring me back a model or something. So like a model car that I would have to put together, those 3 soldiers that's in DC's, a model of that I would have to put together. And I would get them, and within a day or two, hands full of glue, I have these prototypes together, so to speak. And, coming up, never really thought about it. I wasn't the greatest student, but I was an athlete, fastest boy in the hood. So my old heads is pitting me against smokers to race for $100 so I can get 20. You know what I mean? Like, so I thought I was going to be an athlete, and that's what I went to college for. I went to college to play football. I was a decorated athlete in high school, and my senior year in college, I got hurt. And after that, it was, well, what am I going to do now? And my girlfriend at the time, she was applying for an internship at Goldman Sachs, and I wrote her application for her. And she got the internship. I said, shit, I'm smart. You know what I mean? Like, so I got 6 months before I graduate, I'm rehabbing my knee, I'm in my most depressed state ever, and oh, you're smart. My degree is in criminal justice. That got me to DC. So I was a youth correctional officer for the DC government for 11 months. And I had some sage advice, and I'm getting to the crux of it. I got some sage advice from one of my coworkers, and he was like, young boy, you're too smart to work here. You're either going to stay here to 5 years and retire in 20, or you're going to leave now. And I was like, okay. Yes, my old head, I got a lot of respect for him. Traditional DC old head, right? and take me to Southeast. We was on transportation together. We'd go to the wharf, the Shrimp Bowl,
Yeah.
Horace and Dickey's, all these kind of things, right? And then I was on my way looking for jobs back in Philadelphia. I was gonna come back and be a social worker or something like that, because I just said, well, I don't have no other skills. My degree is in criminal justice. I can be a social worker with my criminal justice degree.
Sure.
And I wound up meeting this girl at the Howard McDonald's, and through my relationship with her, and it was brief, it was about 6 months to 8 months long.
Yeah.
Her mom worked at Booz Allen Hamilton. And at the point where I'm looking for a job, wanting to do different things, Booz Allen Hamilton is starting a new assessment center. It's a data entry center that is going to now manage all of the firm's performance assessment process from an HR side, right? And I got a data entry job. I can't type though. You know what I mean? So my first assignment was the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog's back because it hit every key on the keyboard. I wasn't proficient with Outlook. I wasn't proficient with Excel. All of the things that you would need to simply exist in the corporate sphere as an employee, right?
Sure.
My office mate knew all the stuff. He didn't really want to tell me. He didn't really want to tell me it. Our other coworker, she was smart, but she's in a different office, so she's not in there with me when I'm struggling. Like, I got a task that I don't know what to do. But within 6 months, he had gotten let go. Within like 8 to 9 months, the other girl went to a different company. So now I'm the most senior person on this thing. And in 3 months, we are about to transition to a new performance assessment application for the entire firm. Right? So we got 2 new coworkers. I'm now kind of training them. I'm becoming proficient. My key is customer service.
Yeah.
When we went to ePerformance as a platform for performance assessments, we all go into this room because now my group is now not only tasked with ensuring that all the documents and data is right within the system, but now we have to train it through the HR specialists up and down the East Coast. We went into the trainer. The developer's name was Shaker Casaro. Never forget him. He was out of Pittsburgh. And we went through the process of creating a document. He showed us how to do it. Anybody want to try it? Fuck it. Anybody? I'll raise my hand. Fuck it. I'll try. I did it exactly how he did it.
Nice.
And they're asking, my coworkers are asking me, have you done this before? I said, we all came in here together. But I'm not afraid of it. We go through this training. He said, you can do this. He showed me, I don't know what any of this stuff means yet, but he says, this is how you see source code. Every website has source code. Every single website has source code. You can go and find this, you can look at this, you can look at this, you can look at this. Right? Now, I spent 2 stints at Booz over the course of 16 years. So that was all of my professional experience. I was a data entry analyst for maybe 4 to 5 years. Right? I became a back-end systems engineer for Booz Allen Hamilton, utilizing my skills from my constructs.
Gotcha.
Right? So I always had it. It was always there. There wasn't an opportunity that presented itself that was going to stretch and challenge me. Now, when I get the job as a software engineer and my boss is telling me that I need to know Unix and I don't know what the hell he's talking about, or I need to plug in this SQL codes to go and query a database, and I'm like,
but that's the thing. That's the thing that's really interesting. Like, I had a job working as a freelancer. And, now actually I moved from being a freelancer to working in a full-time gig. And one of the things with it was SQL. And it's like, I knew a few things, but I was like, all right, this is not 100% required. It's like, I can figure some things out. I'm a quick learner. And it would just give me stuff that was like, I'm inherited someone else's code. And I was like, I don't know why they did this, how they did this, anything. I can't replicate it. So when I break it eventually, I got to remake it. So, it was kind of one of those things. And I ended up leaving the job. Kind of got fired, quit, somewhere in the middle. It was some race things that were going on there. But the thing that stuck out with me is that I never learned really how to do it. And it was under pressure, right? In this weird way. And it's not like a matter of giving up. I was staying there to 9 at night sometimes to try to get this thing right, to understand it. So I was like, I'm not gonna let this computer beat me. So similar situation happened in a role I was in after, but I had someone who was there who already was doing it, and he was leaving, and there was a lot of stuff that was going to come to me, and he was like, I'm going to give you my code, I'm going to train you how to use it. So once he gave that to me, I was still working those sort of long hours because I wanted to understand it, but also the difference was it had me very curious.
Right.
And now I use it every day.
And you have reference.
I have reference. I use it every day. I'm making sort of these reports that are used university-wide, all of this different stuff, because the context was different. And having someone that's sort of the Sherpa, if you will, the person that's going to introduce you to something other than, I'm not going to train you or help you in it, kind of the example you were describing, like, you can do this, you understand this, you understand the logic. And once that happened, I was like, oh, there's nothing that can stop me.
Correct. And then breaking stuff improves you.
And everything should be able to get fixed if it could get broken.
So if it gets broken, you can get fixed. And most of the time, I work, with the entire application on the back end, so it's infrastructure, where it sits, where it lives, right? And I broke the financial application for all the payables, all of it. Legit. Because I was trying to clean up the C drive. It was going to die anyway if I couldn't get enough log files and stuff. Now, I'm not proficient. I don't know that DLL files are program files, system files. I was deleting DLL files like they was nobody's business, like they was text files. I started getting all these alerts. Broken. I said, oh, good. Called my developer, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Bro.
Yo, Sajid, I broke it. He said, what do you mean you broke it? I said, I broke it. Now we had to rebuild the entire application. If that wasn't the most robust training experience that I could have ever had, that propelled now I did that within a year of being a software engineer, right? It propelled the rest of my career. By the time I left in 2010 and 2012, and they called me back in 2015, well, what do I break it down to? I'm easy to work with. My thing is service, it's customer service. I treat people well, and they freely give me information on the back end. So, as a result of that, not only do I have a tighter relationship with my developer, who's now like, we make mistakes. It's okay, because I'm so remorseful. I'm like, damn, I'm gonna get fired, and all this. He's like, don't worry about it. We're gonna fix it. It's fine. You're good. Like, you tried. You tried. Don't worry. So he gave me all this confidence and reassurance that by the time I go and try something else, and this is that and the third, by the time I leave Booz, I manage, again, the dearth of our really kind of crucial financial applications, one being Tableau, which, is now the CEO is using for reporting. That he's reporting to his shareholders and to Wall Street and things like that. And these are my things, and I'm giving them time before I leave to start my gallery venture, so that we can close out this project. Because I'm so integral into it. I'm such an integral piece into this project because I know how all of these applications are interconnected and work with each other. So again, I tie all that back to my constructs as a kid.
So you said something that's, I think, a really good segue actually into where we're at. So let's talk about the gallery a little bit. Give us the background. How did we get started here? And for the listeners, describe it, because we're in here. I mean, I've seen all of this dope photography come in. It's a fine art photography gallery. So let's talk about it.
So let's talk about the aesthetics first. The building itself is a historic building. It's a former Masonic temple that was owned by Cunningham Piano from like the 40s through the 2000s. So this is a former piano showroom. Both the storefronts are former piano showrooms. So, I like to say the space is built for sound. The floors that we're walking on were laid by the Masons. I just had them refinished, right? The gallery is ordained with very large works, 40 by 60s. I call them portals. They represent 7 different countries: Abu Dhabi, Barbados, Bali, Paris, a lot of Kenya, 3 U.S. national parks, and 3 photos from Philadelphia, Germantown, more specific to the block that I live on, and then Subway Surfer is our most popular and best-selling piece, and it's a young boy dancing on the Broad Street line, the Scepter line. So the gallery is a pristine space that has a homey feel. you know, so like good energy around it. It's not a pretentious space. So a lot of galleries, especially that black folks see or poorer people see, seem unattainable, right? So I wanted to create a space that was simply in the community, but it's high end, right? I wanted to be here all the time. I didn't want to run the gallery as, well, I got a salesperson. Salespeople treat you differently because they want a commission. Now, when you come in here and you're talking to me, now we got high-end barbershop.
So hold on real quick. We didn't mention a name.
Ubuntu Fine Art. Ubuntu is a South African philosophy that I translate to humanity and sharing. A common definition is I am because we are, is built and baked into South African culture. So South Africa is the country that I've frequented the most. I've been there 3 times. And within my time there, most anywhere I travel is, how do I bring it back home? How do I keep it once I hit PHL? You know, once I hit the airport, it feels like it all just washes. You just had this, you know, amazing experience. Your soul feels cleansed. You know, people saying, brother, welcome, welcome, welcome. And you come back home and without anybody saying a word to you, you just feel the energy. You know, the ramp agent don't want to deal with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just feel this energy, and I wanted a way to keep it. I wanted a way to continue to feel it, and by naming it Ubuntu Fine Art, we now can utilize this philosophy that undergirds our business model. And within it undergirding our business model, it's, well, how do we see ourselves as part of community fabric? How do we see ourselves as tangible example for the community? I see you as me, you know? So I challenge young boys all the time. How much that Gucci belt costs? Oh, hey, this on fire is $250, $350, $400, $500. What do you think art is worth? Well, I get me a Basquiat. No, that's not a question I asked you. I said, what do you think art is worth? You know, not as an investment, as a collectible, you know, as an artifact. What do you think is worth? Would you spend the same amount that you paid for that Gucci belt for one of my pieces? You know, and it's a rhetorical question. You don't have to answer it. It just gets into your mind the value of what something can potentially be. And then when I talk about bequeathing it to your estate and, you know, this is that and the third, and you don't buy art because you want to invest in it, even though it could be an investment, you buy it because you like art, or you want to support an emerging artist, or whatever the case may be. Far too often we just don't have no experience with it, you know, at its highest level. So like, well, you get a certificate with this, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, this comes packaged a certain way. You get our signed seal of approval. So when your grandkids take it to Antiques Roadshow, they have accompanying documentation no different than a Rolex. So you view all of these things in a similar vein. You can't afford a Basquiat, right? And unless you go into Sotheby's, to the auction house, by and large, you're not buying art as an investment. You're buying art to enhance or complement the space that you're going to occupy or that you want to show to somebody else, right? So building a space that allows for access, whether somebody takes advantage of it or not, isn't the point. The fact that we're here allows for access. Hopefully, so that you come here, ask a shit ton of questions, and then go to the Philadelphia Museum of Art. I don't want to keep you here. I want to create lovers of the arts.
You're opening up, at least what I'm taking in what I was seeing and doing my internet stalking or research. It's almost providing this sort of entry point as to, this is the beginning of the conversation. Definitely check this out. Definitely see this. And also, even with the images that are captured or moments that are captured or stolen that are there, it's showing it and sharing in many ways like a world outside of the community that you're in. But also it's like an invitation to explore the world of fine art a bit more, because any of these things, you know, if we're being frank about it, you're talking black people a lot of times of like, no, you should be able to dive further into this. You should be able to see more of this. You like this? Great. Also go to these places as well. But having more informed conversation and discussion of what is art. And I like that you said Basquiat, because I like Basquiat, and you know, I like I like that whole thing around it, but it is kind of that sort of I remember when people used to say, black people used to say, hey, I like punk rock, I'm into Green Day. It's like,
That's not punk rock.
it's kind of that. It's like, yo, name me two other ones. Don't name me something that American Apparel or something that any of these sort of stores have. It's like that. Oh, you know, what is it? Urban Outfitters has a shirt with them on there. Give me somebody else.
Right.
So that's where my thinking goes.
Hopefully, and to kind of take it a step further, is
Sure.
we don't know what we don't know, and
Right.
we only know what we're exposed to. So within, you know, let's say the black community, entertainment is our highest barometer, and that's entertainment as singer, rapper, actress, actor, athlete, or whatever the case may be, are the only attainable goals. When art is a way to tell a story, to tell your story, what your life was like during your time here. It's a legacy that you're building with the idea that people remember you. And if they don't remember you while you're alive, your life lives on in perpetuity through your body of work that grandma or your sister or your mom randomly found in the basement. You know what I'm saying? Or, you know, your foundation, because you took it a little bit seriously, now your foundation is going to allow for you to live on through your body of work, through your narration, through your messaging, and, you know, all of those kind of things. So a lot of my process is, well, I want a plaque on Germantown Avenue. What's the way for me to do that? Doing the work that I deem necessary through my personal being here, right? And not, all right, well, I got enough money to move, so I'm gonna roll and then on my business here. No, I had enough money to stay in DC.
Yeah.
Philadelphia is free. We own our crib for 50 years.
And I hear you in that. Like, you know, as you mentioned it, I was like, all right, man, keep my system up, man. I need my story in there, bro. I need this whole sort of archive kept. And I think this is an idea I've been playing with. You were talking before we got started about loving audiobooks, right? And I listen to a lot of art process, a lot of like how creatives think. And you know, it's the Rick Rubin one has just been on my mind recently. It's like, oh, you know, in terms of, am I an artist? No, I'm in this sort
I would
of,
beg to differ, but continue.
But in terms of like, I look at it as something a little bit different in terms of the definitions, but thank you. And I think with it, it's sort of this dynamic of I can articulate exactly what it is. I have tastes that I'm trying to share and I'm trying to put out there. So when people have a question for me, why'd you pick me? Well, saw your work and I thought it was cool. It's not much more than that. I don't need to have the gatekeeper conversation.
Like
Boom. And I'm interested in learning more. And it goes back to, and I think there's the overlap, the data and the creativity overlap. Like I was saying earlier with SQL. SQL interests me, and I just put a lot of interest and time into it. You know, learning about what someone's process is, learning about the thinking that goes into it, that interests me. Let's continue that conversation. Oh, I like Philadelphia. Let me come up there and see what they think. Is there some overlap with how the artists that, you know, in these different cities I might go to, and being able to steal from you guys as well.
Right.
You know, I like to be able to act like I know more than I do.
There's no such thing as an original thought.
Right.
We all kind of piggybacking off each other, and the breadcrumbs our forebears left for us, right? So, you know, I envision my body of work to rival that of Gordon Parks in the way that, you know, I would like my work to be the lens in which future humans look at my contemporary period. So in 2098,
2098.
how are they referencing 2023?
Yeah.
Right? And can my images be a reference point into Black life, whether that Black life be in Africa or hyper local to myself in Germantown, right?
So in that, I definitely have a question around that. Why was it important for you to show that? Like for you, it's broad as you described. It can be as local as here in Germantown where we're recording this, or, you know, in the continent of Africa, what have you, and anywhere else, right, that Black people are at. Why is it important for you to, through your photography, to document that, and through the work that you're doing to document that?
One, for myself, it shows variety. So like it's not just so this is my community and this is what I'm documenting. I'm just simply living a life, and part of this life, this is what I've been able to capture in my, this is the time that I've been able to still through my camera, right? And, you know, people ask me all the time, do you go to these places intentionally to photograph? And I say, Yes and no. I go to these places at the behest of my friends because they want themselves photographed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they make it easy for me to be with them. But once I'm done with, get out of my way. The landscape is still there,
Yeah.
right? And you know, what's your photography style? I'm not editorial. I'm not photojournalism. I'm not a portrait photographer. Even though I can do all of those things, well, what do? I absorb space well, you know. And through the absorption of space, it helped me to create community in South Africa, community in Kenya, you know, community in Lisbon, Portugal, community in most every country that I've traveled, and then bring my intellect that I've garnered back directly to my hyper-local space and my hyper-local community. So somebody asked me one time, you know, do you do black art? Well, motherfucker, am I black?
That's the thing.
I am black.
It's a weird sort of, I'll put it this way, and it's no shots, right? But maybe when you have to have that almost certificate of, this is a black-owned business. This is this. It's like, no, but can it just be good on the merits that's there? It's like, aren't I this?
Yeah.
Like, I'm a black man, you're a black man, and do you expect it to kind of look a certain way?
Right.
Because I've been hearing more and more of this recently. You don't look like a podcaster.
What does a podcast look like?
That's the question I had. And I was like, you mean this part, or is it the height? You know, trying to get them out. But it's interesting when people ask you that, like, you know, so do you do like a black podcast? Or you talking to black artists? I was like, I talk to whoever interests me. And some of these quote unquote black and for the culture sort of things, you've run across them. You hear the same sort of barbershop conversation. And while that could be very entertaining, is it something you're really getting something out of? Is it some substance in it? Is that something that's transporting you to a place? And I think that's a big piece of what you're doing here with the work. You're transporting people. Like, wow, you got that? Well, that's there?
You can go to Paris in here. You can go to Kenya in here. And more than that, we've had so many people come in from different islands around the world. This reminds me of my island. Well, you know, this reminds me of this, and this reminds me of this. But you're looking at Germantown right next to it, and you like that too. Yeah. So now you're exposed to this thing. So now it's a transfer of information. It's a transfer of energy within. Well, why do you make them so big? You know, one of my advisors told me that I've never seen a photography gallery where all the work's this big. I say this so that it can be portals. You know, I can transport somebody into a different space and time, right? That they are now going to make their own, and we're going to have conversation about this thing. I had a 9-year-old musician come in here, and one of my pieces, On the Calm, has a music note in it. Now, I didn't know it had a music note in it, right? And I had been working with this file for close to 3 years.
Right.
And more intensively as I'm preparing it for the gallery. Yeah. She walked in here within a minute of being in here, ran to that joint. That's a music note. That's 2 eighth notes. Look, and then walked away as a matter of fact. And I'm like, ain't no music note in my photo. What you talking about? I'm ready to argue with her. I say, damn, you right. Yeah. Now I can use it. Because now she helped me to see something within the thing, which is what art is. It creates discourse. You don't have to like it. It's not about liking it. You can be the critique person, and you can just go in and critique everybody's stuff, right? And you don't never have to like anything. But if I like everything, now, well, why did you dislike that? Well, I don't like these shadows. Well, I thought the shadows was the thing that made it the best. Yeah.
You actually learn something from that, and I think it gets into the conversation around like nuance. It gets to the conversation around meaning, and we try to trim that out because it's too hard, right? Yeah. We don't want to do that. We rather, and this is not quite related, but I think it's indicative of the sort of system we're in. We rather cancel a situation or cancel a person versus let me fully understand your shittiness. And now I can say, nah, you're out of here, G, or, run the hands as it were. Right. But I think to stop it short, I think that's part of sort of, I don't know what the antithesis of cultural preservation is, but there's a version of it. When you stop a conversation short or you censor something, you're losing something.
Yeah. It doesn't allow for the discourse because we don't have to agree, and this is what I try to get people to understand, especially people that I collaborate with. We ain't gotta agree. Yeah. Do we have the same mission? Yeah. Are we going in the same direction? Can we actually now? not all, you can't collaborate with everybody. So I'm not suggesting that everything that come by, you're just going to do it with somebody. But at the same time, you know, like the idea of Ubuntu is seeing somebody as you. So you know you got your own proclivities and biases that you have to beat back and beat down and all these. So why don't they have these same things, right? So if we know that most people are operating on their bias, on whatever their bias spectrum is, right? And with things like social media, it gets, you're able to, right, wrong, or indifferent, you are able to reinforce all of these biases with nothing to come to combat it. Anything that combat it now turns into an internet argument. Yeah. Right? Now, well, we just trying to beat each other or get the last word, and you know, henceforth. So we're not examining ourselves.
No, we're not in that system that I think is really, if you look at it, for the last, let's say 20 years, right? We're in 2023. I always look at, I feel like Facebook, when it was the Facebook, you know, happened when I was a freshman, right? And so I'm like 20 years that we've been kind of dipped in this sort of, you know, it's this response or that response. It's nothing in the middle. That doesn't get like voted up, right? There's the programming component there. It's made to be sort of binary. We have all of these sort of binary systems that are in place that really have a lot of power. You know, if you look at like politics, you either pick this party or that party. And the moment where we start looking at something that can kind of muddy that water, no, you have to pick one of those. You can't be somewhere in the middle. So when someone talks about like art, someone talks about creativity, someone talks about a city, a community, oh, that's what that place is about. It's violent. Moving on. It's, you know, this art is good, this art isn't. You know, when you have people who are self-taught or people who have the MFAs or the BFAs or what have you, and it's like, oh, that's not good work. Really? How does it make you feel? I had this conversation with someone recently, actually, and they were like, I don't get art. I don't understand how you do this podcast. And I was like, what are you trying to get from it? Like, I don't understand art. I was like, oh, you said it again, but what are you trying to understand? What are you trying to get from it? It's a feeling thing, I think.
It's not a homework assignment.
No, it's not. Did you like this? You don't have to explain why you like it. Did you like it?
Or it made me feel a certain way. You know what I'm saying? It's the beauty of art. I had, you know, we have apartments above and behind me, and a DoorDash guy came one day, often come to the gallery before they go to the apartments, by mistake. So he poked his head in, looked around, bit amazed, and then went to drop his thing off and came right back and said, you know, I don't mean to interrupt your conversation. You know, walk to On the Calm, which is the piece with the music note. He said, I've been cleaning for 4 years, and this picture spoke to me and gave me the motivation, encouragement, you know, whatever word that he used to keep going. Now, that wasn't intentional. It's simply proximity, access. Right? So because I was here, and because the other guy that I was talking to was rapping my head off, I was open a little bit later. So all these things wound up working out in my mind for him. So that he can come and feel something a certain kind of way that is going to help him think that's what art does. Art makes you feel, and it should make you feel either angry, neutral, or happy.
I've not seen a lot of performance art, right? And I was down in New Orleans, and it was this exhibition about water was a theme. And it was this one video of this performance art thing that I was just like, this is something. And I watched the full video, and I got it. I got the messaging. I understood it. You know, understood what they were going for. But you know, when you watch a horror movie that's like really tough, and you're like, this is that part. It's basically he's pulling this bottle of water that's filled with water and wrapped in barbed wire. And he's lowering it, catching it, lowering it, and then eventually he just lets it hit him in the stomach, and he's just, you know, bleeding all over the place. And he's talking about the dangers of how he got here as an immigrant. His mother had to go through water and the dangers of water. And I'm like, that is a very interesting way of telling that. And I was like, you only could do the video. You can't just say, now on display me like injuring myself. But and to that point of feeling something, like, I think I saw the back end of it, and I was like, where is this going? I wasn't paying attention to it. And then it pulled me back in. Like, no, I'm not letting you leave. I need you to understand the feelings and what I was thinking that went into this. And I was like, okay, I got it.
Right.
I get it.
And then you can make your own determination whether you like it or not, but you felt something, you know what I mean?
That's the
And
point.
that feeling was, well, that really wasn't for me. But a lot of things like a good movie, in like live music, I don't care what the live music is, and I hate half the rap. If I go to a concert and I'm watching everybody else screaming and yelling and, you know, just being so jovial and, you know, and the performers are giving it their all and everything else, and I'm like, dang, man, this is amazing, yo. Just because it's live, but I won't watch a video, I won't listen to it on the radio.
It's about being there in a place, right? So, you know, I was joking about it. We were talking a little bit about the Eagles and all before we got started, and you know, I was just like, man, I wish I was up here. You know, last week I was like, it looked like it was fire.
You gotta come back. You gotta come back next weekend. You gotta come back next week.
And the thing about it, I go back to this experience. You mentioned like sort of live music, right? I'm a big Currency fan. At least at the time, I was really into Currency. And I remember going to the Smokers tour. Like this is maybe 2012, 2013. And one of the like policemen that was like down there, he was like, "Yo, hope you ain't got no clean clothes on, 'cause it's gonna smell stinking." And I was like, "Yo, this is wild." So he had recently broken his ankle. So he's not gonna like, he was like, I'm just gonna bring the party to y'all. So he brought out a couch and he's rapping off the couch with the ankle brace on, the whole thing. And I'm like, this is great. So the next person that goes up that's closing the show is actually Method Man. So it was Big Crit, Currency, and Method Man.
That sounds like a fantastic show.
Son. So, and it was sponsored by Raw Paper. So it's just, everything is just going out. So Method Man said something really interesting. It's not a huge crowd there, but it's, you know, good. And, you know, I'm there with my hip hop hat on or have you, which was weird. But one of the things that he has said, he was like, just enjoy the moment. He's like, yo, stop looking over there at this guy to see if he's having a good time. That chick is over there taking pictures or what have you. Be in this moment, share this sort of experience. Right. And then he ate a blunt, which was really funny. But that was that. I was like, this is the point. We're not here to watch him do that song the same way that it was recorded. We're watching him for this experience. Yes. We're here to share this experience.
Yes, that's art.
Boom. See, we're just having like the really off the cuff conversation here. So in looking at it, I see, and it's probably more than this, but I see, you know, you've had travels to 18 countries for the context, right? 4 U.S. national parks. Like, have they shifted your perspective and how you view like your role as a photographer, your approach as a photographer? Like, you know, when you mention like landscapes, I think of national parks. I think of like different countries I've never been to. I think of like palm trees and water, pristine blue water. Has it changed your like perspective with regard to photography?
Traveling cultures you, and me as a photographer who I say like I absorb space, and whatever the space is giving me, I receive it, you know, and I'm not going to exploit anything. I'm just I'm here, and I want to be part of. It's allowed me to kind of take the reins off of what I envision photography to be. So it's not categorized into a bucket.
Yeah.
You know, it's allowed me to like almost like directly look at my body of work differently. Right, so you know, what are the stories that I'm telling? How am I telling these stories? How am I producing these stories? The materials that I'm using to produce the work. You know, all these kind of things. But more importantly, it's the energy that I've gotten from the new place. Right, I can keep it through my files. So when I'm going back and looking at a trip or curating for a new exhibition or whatever the case may be, I'm always able to harken back to how I felt in that space, which now comes directly through to the files.
It's like a time capsule.
Exactly, right? Smells, tastes, everything.
I remember those plantains, man.
Man, like, you know, in the last place I went before I opened a gallery was Lamu, Kenya, and I spent almost a month in Kenya on this trip. November 20, height of the pandemic, like, you know, semi-restrictions on the island, a quasi-world, so to speak, just this richness of these people. And, you know, at this time, I'm on this island, and I said, I've never felt this free. I've never felt this free in my life now. Not free in the sense that I don't have any inhibitions or, you know, nothing's required of me. Like zero. And I don't know that any Black American, by and large, or not many, when do we ever feel free? Like intrinsically, you know, without it being hyperbole. Like, oh, I'm free. Well, why are you free? Because I got $1 million. No, you're not necessarily free. But a feeling of freedom that was built through my other travels.
Yeah.
Culminating in this one at the height of the pandemic that prepared me to view my photographs in such a way that I can now tell a story. Now, the exhibition that is currently in the gallery aren't similar images. Right? Yeah. And most collections, exhibitions have themes, and they're themed through a central thing. And I'm like, no, this exhibition, I'll theme shit later. This exhibition is to show my versatility as an entity, as a brand, as a photographer, right? So I'm not just a landscape photographer, even though I want to be thought about on the same parallels as an Ansel Adams, right? You know, I'm not necessarily in the mold of Gordon Parks, right? Even though I utilize his you know, the steps that he paved for all photographers alike to envision themselves in their body of work a certain kind of way. It's not just for Instagram. It's not just for social media. It's not just to post, right? Garnering these experiences that now I'm able to document my community with, you know, like almost through like an intellectual spectrum or intellectual prism that my travels have given me, because it opened my mind. It helped to culture me, being around different people, different ethnicities, religions, you know, all these kinds of things that now I can then come back to my community with not a sense of like, man, I need to get out of here, it's dirty. I love it even more because I feel free.
So I think I was talking a little bit earlier, like I've been to New Orleans recently, and I've been down there before, several times before, but this last trip, it was a lot different. And I've enjoyed each time, right? But this last one was different because I've had basically, with the exception of maybe a few interviews, like I think started this podcast in, let's say, July of 2019. January 2020 was the last time I was down there. So whatever the interviews I got in that period, let's say it was about 30 interviews. Now I've had over 500 plus from the last time I was there to now. So going there with a different concept, different context, and having these conversations with people, I saw it very differently. And I was like, oh, and you talked about being a runner before we got started. It was like when you're doing something with the ankle weights on, and you're like, oh, I'm faster now because you ran with some resistance. It's like, oh, I'm kind of stretching these new muscles of, I'm gonna go there because that place looks interesting. And the previous time I had no interest in going to some of those places. So the world in that place that I love and I have been to before has opened up, and I imagine, you know, as I'm coming up here and I'm doing this sort of work up here in Philly, I'm seeing that. I'm seeing that of like, all right, where am I going to go next? What place am I going to check out? And we're out here. I thought I was going to have that sort of, that one meeting out here in Germantown and then just go back into the fashion district, do all of my stuff.
I try to tell you, man, everybody should move to Germantown, but that's just my bias.
I mean, I may have
I don't want to take you from Baltimore, but you know, I think Germantown is just a very special place. And you know, to your point, you're absolutely right. You know, we are single entities, and we carry all of our experience with us, good, bad, or indifferent, right? And we become a byproduct of these things, and it's up to us to challenge ourselves to stretch further, to stretch more. So my approach is materials, right? So how can I utilize different materials? I actually am in the process of writing a proposal to do a residency in Japan at this paper making factories, because I want to make my own paper. I want a proprietary paper that I print on, even if it's only for one run exhibition or whatever the case may be, you know. So that way, you know, these came from my hands. You know, I made this handmade washi paper, you know, and spending some time in Japan so that I can then come back with a new exhibition, with new interactions with people, not just Mount Fuji, not just Tokyo, but, you know, a rural space, you know, Kyoto, this place. Well, why is that? Through my love of anime. So anime has sparked this love affair with Japan. I've never been, but through anime, whether it's Naruto, One Piece, whatever the anime is that I'm watching at the moment or at the time, it's like, well, they have this beautiful way of blending this traditional and technology together that, you know, I want to be a part of. I'm not going to say that other places can't or don't do it, but I want this thing. Like I want to put my super duper digital files on some handmade paper that got, you know, mulberry ridges in it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you know, my art advisor was like, you know, how do you think that's going to look? And in my mind, it's going to look fucking fantastic. Yeah. You know, why is it going to look fantastic? Because I created it. It's simply because I created it, and I'm testing it. I am stretching myself in the process, and through stretching myself is how we get stronger, is how we build endurance, is how we build confidence, and how we learn not to give up. So the only way to gain muscle is to tear the fibers of the existing muscle. Yeah. You're stretching it. You're making in order for it to get bigger, it needs to stretch.
Hypertrophy.
You know, exactly. So like, if we think about it that way, then all of our pursuits in life should be to challenge us.
That's really in what I'm looking at in doing this. Like, let me stretch the boundaries of what this is for me. And I admire when folks are doing it. That was the key thing that stuck out when I was reading over your stuff. It's like, you're a dude that stretches the boundaries of what you're going to do, and then you just do it. And I admire that. And I
don't ask for permission. So, you know, oftentimes I own a fine art gallery. When people think of gallery space, they think of a curator and a body of artists that this curator is going to utilize, tap into to create themes around work, right? Get some funding. You have a buyer's list. You have some consultant list, like, you know, PR. You're interconnected within the quote unquote real art world, right? On some level, because you need people to buy the work. It's the only way galleries stay viable, right? So, you know, for me, well, I don't have any of that experience. This is an entrepreneurial endeavor. Yeah. You know, and through that entrepreneurial endeavor, well, all I need to know is how to hang it, how to process my file, how to light it. Yeah. Well, that's research. Yeah. That's not permission.
You made it into a system where it's so much of this like cloak and dagger sort of secrecy. Yeah. Because it's not for you. It's not for me.
Exactly.
But once you're able to kind of like, oh, I've been around this. You almost have to have someone to get you into it. But I think once you have a sense of what it is, it's like, oh, that's what this is.
Yeah, and then all the other stuff will come. So affluence will always travel to art poorness can't. If I put it where poorness has access, and I create something that is legit, it's not lesser. Yeah. Right? This is high end in a mug. It's probably one of the nicer gallery spaces in the entire city of Philadelphia.
I didn't think I belonged in here when I walked by. I was
in the entire city of Philadelphia, right? Access, affluence will come. So as I'm working with people, as I build network, now again, one need give time for entrepreneurial endeavors. Did I ever believe or fathom myself to be an artist? Now this is to your point earlier where you said you weren't an artist. I would not argue, but I would be very stern with people to not call me an artist. I'm an engineer. I built this as an engineer. This is ones and zeros to me. Distance from the wall, the lighting to be based on beam spread and image size.
My man.
That's an equation, right? That I can work with a lighting designer to see what it's going to look like on a 3D render.
When I'll share this for you before we get to these rapid fires. We're going to wrap in these few moments here. But I had this thing where, you know, people would assume, oh, you're good at public speaking, you're good at this, you're good at that. Yeah. I was like, I am shy and I get stage fright. I don't know what to tell you. And I remember I was supposed to do this talk for Creative Mornings. And I'm like, yo, and they're like, it's a prepared speech, you're doing all of this. And I was like, all right, cool, I don't really know about that. And, that sort of naysayer thing comes in. So almost in the same way, I was like, what am I good at? It's like, I can do an interview. I know how to do interviews. So I framed this talk as an interview of myself.
Interesting.
So I broke down this concept, the theme was truth. I broke down this concept of truth through 3 different quotes. And I responded and provided an anecdote for each one of those, and I just framed it like I was interviewing myself. And that was the way I got through it, and people dug it. And if it was just me going up there trying to riff and do a sort of speech or what have you, I don't know if I'm that interested in that regard.
Conversely, at least for me, I'm an artist now. I am an artist, right? All engineers are artists. Every single one, right? And I use an example. I had a young boy come in here. He's like some structural mechanic, super smart dude, right? And I was like, coders, engineers, can sign their name on their code. Well, don't artists sign their pictures in their paintings? Now, you know, the same, how do you get to a point? What is the deliverable, right? So what is required? Whether you do that shit in Python, JavaScript, HTML, a S3 bucket, or I'm going to do this joint all in this long ass piece of binary. I'm going to put my name at the end of it, and it's up to you to figure it out later. It's up to somebody else to figure it out later, but it works right now.
That's when someone says, like, when you go through what your process is or what have you, it's sort of that when someone has, like, what their layout's going to look like of, this is how this is going to flow. Like, my background's mostly in SQL and do a little Python, but mostly SQL. So when I'm sitting there, I'm like, this was somebody else's code. I can see what they did here. They didn't really, like, map this out in any way, shape, or form.
But it works.
But it works. And that's the thing. Like, we can get to the same sort of thing. Our processes may be, my join might be different from your join.
Exactly.
And I think that's a really good comparison, actually.
So in my mind, if all structural engineers, mechanical engineers, architects, you know, all of these people that may not distinguish themselves as artists, they all are. An artist is not necessarily an engineer. Not necessarily, right? Now you engineer a painting, you'll create this thing, but it's also process. Right, and I think on some level, you know, and I kind of welcome debate around this question or this topic is, on some level, the process creates the engineer, right? And these are formal processes, right? Now, that looks just like Michael Jackson, and you painted that. Tell me how you did it. I like the colors. I did this thing. You know, it's process, which distinguishes the two. I think artists are a little freer. I think it's a little, you know,
it's not as rigid.
It's not as rigid. Engineers are almost too rigid. You know what I'm saying?
Artists are chefs. Engineers are bakers.
Fair. That's very fair. You know, and when I kind of lay it out like that, it gives credence to the both. So it helped me get over my imposter syndrome as an artist, because I was so enthralled and enamored with titling myself as an engineer. My degree is in criminal justice. I was so proud to be, I'm a software engineer senior on my resume, that I can go shop to Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, whomever else wants it, and I will get a job as a software engineer senior. You know, probably managing folks doing something or another, right? I was so proud of that I didn't want to relinquish it. And I got caught up in this, well, I'm this, and it made me almost like too stern, too rigid. I'm not moving from this thing. So now, instead of welcoming praise, I am rebutting it.
It's the same for me, where for the longest time I've been an analyst around data analyst, marketing data analyst, higher ed, all of that stuff, right? And I recently had an interview that was like, I think you're more business intelligence because you see the bigger picture. And it's like, and it pays more, but also you see the bigger picture around that. You're not one of these boots on the ground. You can tell their story. You know what the data means. And And I started thinking about it. I was like, you might be right, actually, having to kind of let some of that go, but definitely for the longest time associating a certain identity and a certain part of me, like at my most successful professionally.
Yes.
I was like, I was an analyst, and you know, but with doing this sort of podcast and all of that, you know, people will say, oh, you're a storyteller. It's like, nah, I'm facilitating people sharing their story. And I'm very like intent on that, because I can't share your story. You can. I can try to provide a framework and some structure around kind of helping guide it, because I'm interested in a certain way, in a certain part of that story or what have you. But I'm sure there's a litany of things that are in it that, you know, have some impact and influence, that if we were to do the same conversation in, let's say, 6 weeks or 6 months, whatever, it's like, it's going to be some of those same bullet points in there, but it's maybe going to come from a different angle.
Exactly. Different energy, different angle. Yeah,
so
I appreciate that.
100%. So let's move to the rapid fire portion.
Rapid.
So I got 5 questions for you, 5 rapid fire questions.
Let's go.
Don't overthink them, because I do it all the time.
Yes.
Here's the first one. What was the first image that went in the gallery?
Shit.
Just
Technically Subway Surfer, because it's the image that I started. I printed the largest 5 years ago, right? And I kind of wanted to build the gallery around this one image, because I knew that image was like, that's gonna be the one. You know, I kind of felt it. So it was Subway Surfer.
What is that'd be remiss if I didn't ask, what are you using to do your work? What kind of camera? What are you using?
Most of the gallery was shot either on a Sony A9 or a Sony AR2. I'm currently using a Sony A1. Mostly prime lenses now. A lot of the gallery was shot on a 24-70. Use Lightroom, Photoshop to process on the back end. My website runs through Wix.
Yeah.
So, you know, my finances run through QuickBooks.
Scott.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, we I try to build systems as part of how I kind of run the business, so that when I'm able to create a SOP after some time of doing it, then it's much more easy for me to tell my mom how to work the damn alarm system.
Yeah,
you know,
that makes sense. How many hours of sleep do you get? I always like to do a self-care check.
Oh, I sleeps.
Okay.
I sleeps. I'm generally in bed by 10 o'clock, you know, and I'm up at 5 a.m. every day. I'm at the gym by 6:30. I get, you know, again, running. I get an hour running. I head back home. I'm at the gallery by 9:30, 10.
All right.
So I have no military background at all, but I try to create some sense of normalcy through regiment.
It's a system. It feels like it's a system.
It feels, in that way, I'm not so overwhelmed, because I need structure. I actually need somebody to tell me what to do. You know, people don't like that, and like, well, you're not an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs don't think that way, and I say no. The benefit of working at a job is somebody is telling, I have a task. When you're a CEO, you gotta give yourself your own task.
You just have to make sure at the end of the year that you didn't have a bunch of losses, and it's at the end of the year.
You know,
so when you're failing through the beginning, or whatever, you're not hitting those goals,
exactly.
those KPIs.
You know, so I've structured in, you know, the amount of time that I'm going to work on things, the amount of time that I'm going to be with my family.
Yeah.
You know, I pick up my daughter every day from school. We do homework together. You know what I mean? Like, she's a part of this process with me. You know, and that's very important to me. So, again, I don't skimp on no sleep. You know, I get 6 to 8 a night.
I'm somewhere in that same thing.
I get 6 to 8 a night.
I've been going going to sleep like 10:30, getting up around 6. Gym doesn't open until 7, so I get over there, and it was some cardio yesterday, a lot of recovery day in cardio. I was like, this is elliptical, right? And it's like, yeah, we're gonna do a lot of glute exercises.
Be careful with that elliptical, man. That thing ain't no joke, yeah.
Let's see. What was the last place you traveled?
I'm in Kenya.
Okay.
Well, Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Okay, I was waiting for the U.S. one.
Tulsa, Oklahoma was the last place I traveled. I did some work with Forbes of Culture over the course of 3 different journeys to wealth, is what they call them, in collaboration with an organization in Tulsa called Building Tulsa, and we did a lot of work in Black Wall Street and things like that. And that's been the last place I was. and I've been to Tulsa 5 times. So I got a lot of Black Wall Street energy.
I hear.
Got a lot of Black Wall Street energy.
So, all right. Let's see. Got two left. Just one's food related. You know, I got it. So, what is the Philadelphia food? I know what you may say, but what's the Philadelphia food?
So, Philadelphia food is cheesesteaks, right?
Okay.
That's what it is. For real, Philadelphia food is like delicatessen type.
So deli food, got it.
So deli food. So, you know, you have your hero hoagies, such thing as hero here. You got your hoagies and, you know, your delicatessen shops, they might that serve other things, you know what I'm saying? Like you might be able to get a brisket sandwich or a salami sandwich or, you know, something like that. Reading Terminal in Philadelphia is a smorgasbord of things.
I'm going there right after this, by the way.
I am partial to Asian food, yo.
Really?
Partial to it. Manny Young got 2 spots, at Ramen and Main Street Pho. They don't pay me and or anything else like that to advertise them or whatever the case may be. But I love noodles. I just love noodles.
I'll say this week I ended up using the HelloFresh. You know, I've been cooking more in the crib. It's a lot of cutting. Yeah. And it was some like ramen dish. It was vegan, and I was like, okay. And it had like the wild like coconut milk in it. I was like, okay, it slapped. It was like a Thai dish. I was like, this is fire. It had the peanuts in there, all of that. I was like, this works.
I am advocating to get a noodle bar on Germantown Avenue. That is my goal.
This is the last one. What is your most used piece of Philly slang?
John. All the way. I'm a Joner. Don't let me go out of town. It's John. Yo, go get the John. If I'm out of town with another Philly person, this is what we're doing. We joning this John to death. Okay? And as many times, it's not even intentional. I catch myself. I said, I just said John. They don't know what I'm talking about. Oh, yeah, the John's over there. Damn, that John fire.
We
fuck with that, John?
We had one dude at Morgan that was like a Philly. He's like the only Philly guy there, which I thought was really weird because it's so close. And it just reminded me of that dude. It was just waves, beard, everything was Philly. I was like, you part of state property? Like, what is this?
He had Tim's on and Dickies.
We were in a business school.
He had Tim's and Dickies, maybe some shells. You know what I mean? Some shell tops, depending on the era of when it was.
This is hilarious.
That is Philly through and through. And you know, I'd be remiss if I didn't use John, you know, at least 20 times a day.
So, in these final moments here, one, I want to thank you for coming on to the podcast and chopping it up with me.
Thank you for having me, Rob.
Absolutely. And I want to open up these final moments for you to tell the folks where they can check you out, your work, the gallery, and anything that's coming up. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Again, Ubuntu Fine Art is located at 5423 Germantown Avenue, along what we're dubbing as the Germantown Arts District or Arts Corridor. We're open Friday through Sunday, free to the public from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. The gallery can be found on Instagram and Facebook at Ubuntu Fine Art. That's UBUNTU FINEART on both platforms. And I can be found on Instagram and Facebook at Stephen C.W. Taylor, STEVEN CW TAYLOR. We have a lot of events coming up. So we have an open mic coming up this Friday. We have something that me and my friend who's a museum curator, her name is Monica O. Montgomery, we've collaborated on what we're calling Germantown Culture Nights, in which is really a gallery tour that is facilitated with some conversation, with some conversation that is specific to a theme, and then we have a Cuban dancer to dance a couple sets.
Yes.
We have some programming next month, you know, that we're doing as far as like we have our last culture nights, we have our open mics, but I really want to work with musicians and kind of allow this space to be like the de facto jazz venue in the city. You know, we don't have no food, we don't have no drinks, it's all art. So this is like raw art. And on this backdrop, in this beautiful acoustic space called Ubuntu Fine Art, you know, we really want to kind of create and set vibes so that again I can attract my noodle bar.
It's all about the noodles at the end of the day.
All about the noodles at the end of the day. So
And there you have it, folks. I want to again thank Stephen C.W. Taylor for coming on to the podcast. And I'm Rob Lee, saying that there's art and community in and around your neck of the woods. You just have to look for it.